show today, and we have a great mate of ours that we've had the pleasure of touring with and recording with for many years now. He's up to recording his 6th LBS album, and he's had some incredible work over those years, and the albums have been very successful. So we'd like to welcome one of Australia's best balladeers, and he's known as the Australian balladeer, Greg Bain.
You're going, Shaz.
Mate,
glad you didn't say bush balladeer.
No, because you're very different with your style.
I'm different, and I do love my bush ballads, but I think I'm probably a little bit different than most of the balladeers. So.
Yeah, Lindsay's always, ever since we recorded you, he's always called you the balladeer with a difference.
He has, and he's always encouraged me to stay true to who I am and what I do. You know, I think, Shaz, I was reared on country music and not just bush ballads. Dad liked people like Frankie Ifield, and of course we had a lot of Slim Dusty in our house, so we got that bush ballad experience a lot. But Dad liked a lot of the American stuff as well. But he also had albums like The Seekers and all that type of music, which we grew up with. Probably I have an appreciation for that folk side. It's probably why I am who I am.
And I think those different influences, musical genres that you're exposed to, you actually then develop your own style, and you've managed to do that.
I think if I tried to mimic someone, that just wouldn't work for me. So I have to do it in my style and my way. It's probably my way or the highway, really.
Well, I think really that's just part of your personality. We might just step back to your life.
Yeah, I've had a very full life actually. As a child, my dad was a coal miner, but not always. And we spent a little bit of time travelling to different places in Australia and living there with Dad's work. He was a stud master on a horse stud at Trunky Creek. He was a boilermaker in a factory at Wingham when I was very young. And we moved to Gunnedah at one stage in the mines, but then we went and farmed as well. So I think I've led a very rich life. Dad was always into horses, not me so much, but I had a passion for motorbike racing, and I raced speedway, I raced cars, I barefoot drag raced, I did lots of things, and I did that with the family. Dad was involved in that as well.
So you had a habit that actually encouraged you wasting your money anyway, even though you didn't take up horses.
Yes, and I know the secret to making $1 million out of horse racing, and it's to start with about 4 or 5 million. I learnt that, and one thing Dad always said to us, gambling's okay, as long as you don't gamble more than you can afford to lose.
Absolutely.
I've never bet on a horse in my life.
No.
Not even the Melbourne Cup.
Well, we were taught the exact same policy, and I'm not a big gambler either unless I know I'm going to win.
Yeah, I've never been in that situation where I was really certain I was going to win.
We actually had shares in a trotter once, and I only backed it to get a place. And they said, "Why didn't you back it to win?" I said, "Because it never wins. It only ever gets a place." And I was the only one that ever made money out of him.
Well, I always used to tell everyone Dad didn't really have racehorses; they were chase horses.
So, what actually drew you into the mining game?
Oh, well, I'm a third generation coal miner. My grandparents, both my grandfathers were coal miners, and in their day, coal miners weren't considered very affluent people. They didn't earn a lot of money. I can remember my grandfathers coming home and bathing in the laundry in a metal tub. They didn't have shower facilities or anything at the mines. So my grandfathers and my father, who was a coal miner as well, underground coal miner, probably forged the industry into what it is today as far as conditions and the wages that miners get. I'm very mindful of where I come from and where I sit in that regime, and I done a trade, but I did it in the coal mines. I've spent 45 years working in the coal mines, along with other jobs that I've had, but my primary work has always been the coal mine industry.
But you're actually an engineer?
I'm an engineer.
Qualified engineer.
Yeah, I did a trade called Engineer Smith, and it was first class welding and fitting and machining, and then after that I went off and done a degree in mechanical engineering.
How did that change your life, because you became less hands-on and more in the managerial side of the mine after that?
That's correct, but I still maintained that ability to work with my hands. The style of management that I brought to the companies that I work for allowed me to work alongside the blokes, not over them, and that's always been my style of management. I think the best way to get to the end game, I guess, to the best out of your people is actually get to know them, and then you'll learn their strengths. And if you let people play to their strengths, you'll be amazed at the results that you get. Yeah. So I've always worked very closely from the floor level. As much as I did the degree, I never moved that far from the face, as we call it in the coal industry. So I worked alongside people. I always believe that you work better with people than have people work for you.
We've actually found touring with you and that you're very much a team player. In our show, that's very much the style that we harbour and we nurture and we encourage. Ultimately, a band is a team, and you're not going to get the best results for anyone or out of anyone if they don't feel as a valued member of that group.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think it's not a lot of difference between me going on the road with yous than being at work. We all pull in, we all do the work,
Absolutely.
We all pack up, we all set up, we share the load and the burden.
Yes.
And I think the friendships forged along the road have been outstanding, and they're very similar at work. The people that I've worked with over the years, I've managed to get outstanding friendships there. I think the world's changed a little bit these days in industry. Recently, as you know, I've called it a day with the coal industry. I've decided to retire. The decision to retire is not just that I'm old enough to retire and I'm in a position to retire, is that I'm starting to become a dinosaur in the industry. And I've got to say that industry that I worked in and the companies that I worked for have fed my families for a lot of years, and I'll always be appreciative of that. But I think it's time in my life where I'm probably not an asset really to a company, more a mentor. So I think it's time for Greg Bain to just pull back a little bit and see what life has outside of the coal industry.
I'm really excited for you that you can actually now focus more on your career, more on your music, and have more time to put into Greg Bain, the artist.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% right there, Shaz. But at the moment, as you say, this has only just happened, and it's probably not a lot to deal with, but it's a huge change in my life. I'm anxious about it, but very excited.
Now you have time to focus on family, focus on your performance and on your music career, which should enable you to actually do more in the way of promotions and take those opportunities.
I think when you look back, I do have regrets, and my biggest regret is the amount of time I'd actually spent in my working career and not spending time with my children. I always thought I had time to see my children grow up, and I turned around twice and they were adults with their own children. My wife has been my children's mother and father. Last Christmas, I had 2 weeks off from work in 46 years. It's the first 2 weeks I've had off work at Christmas time. My kids weren't even there. They're all grown up, they had their kids away. So my biggest regret in my life, I think, is focusing that much on work and not my family. So that's all about the change.
I also think you're a little bit hard on yourself there because you're an incredible man, you're very close to your family, and I know how much support you have always given them in every way. So I actually think you probably can, give yourself a bit of a break there too.
Yeah, but I think what I was trying to say is how much I missed out on.
Yes, okay.
You should have time with your families. You should take that time from work and have it with your families, or you'll miss out on it. And there's a lot to miss out on. I watch my kids now with their kids and the good times that they have, and I think, yeah, you're doing yourself an injustice if you don't make time for your family.
How do you see your career evolving?
Well, what I'd like to think, Shaz, is that we can now actually do some of these things that we couldn't do. We will have the time to do them. I don't have stars in my eyes, but I think I have a loyal fan base out there that I can probably start to spend some more time getting out there and putting the Greg Bain music out there, and not so much building a career as also building some more friendships. It's always a humbling experience to go to a festival and have someone buy albums from you, and then a week later email you and say, how many other albums have you got? Could you send them to us? I think that's just something special.
Songwriting is also a part of your career. You have a really nice way of formulating your songs. We believe it's a big part of the Greg Bain story.
I really get a thrill out of like having an album and there's some Greg Bain songs on there, or some Greg Bain co-writes. What me and you have co-written, especially when I've got an idea that I blank out on, or I get something that I'm not happy with, I send it to you, pull it apart, reconstruct it, send it back. I think I think we've done a lot of good stuff like that.
I think
Really good
we've
stuff.
written some great songs together.
And I think that part of it has helped me with my own writing.
Yes.
To see how you can do that sort of thing. I can remember on the last album, I was so proud of this song I sent to you, and she said, that would be great if it wasn't a Merle Haggard tune.
I do remember that.
Didn't even realise I'd written it to a Merle Haggard tune. I'd written the chorus to a Lonesome Fugitive or something, you know.
It was a sure hit because it already had been.
And I nearly died on the spot when you said it. I thought, oh my God.
Geez, we laughed.
This is a great melody I've come up with here.
It was fantastic. And it suited your lyric perfectly too. Anyway, it was good for you to actually go away then, take that set of lyrics, and it was a great process to then have to recreate and rewrite a complete new song.
Years and years ago, that would have been a real challenge. It was a challenge, but not as much as before. The same album, I purposely wrote a song and sent to Lindsay with no chorus. He said, geez, I like that song. It'd be handy if it had a chorus. I had to write a chorus, didn't I?
I know, it's good.
If you take on board all that information from people that have been in the industry for a long time and know what they're talking about, I think it makes you a better artist and a better writer and an all-round better package.
5 successful albums. Now, you know, that's a pretty mammoth feat. And to be working on your 6th album now, how does that feel in this stage of your life?
Well, I think, Shaz, the recording process has matured with me. I look at our very first album and it's a cracker of an album, but everyone since has brought something better to the table, and the production quality is just, to me, outstanding. When you listen to albums on the radio, you can pick the good quality albums. It's not just about putting an album out there so my mates can buy it. It's about putting out an album that will receive airplay and that people will be proud to play to their friends. And I think as I've evolved, I've matured, and I think the albums show more maturity each album and more warmth.
They do.
Yeah.
And you've improved as a singer too. Like when you first came to record, you'd only been in the industry 6 months. Now that rarely happens. Most people are developed as childhood performers, and there's this whole sequence of events that gets them into a recording studio. You just went from being a rank amateur to being plucked, and then you were catapulted into having a professional recording career. It must have been just mind-blowing.
It was, but sometimes to be thrown in the deep end, there's nothing wrong with it. And I've been thrown in the deep end quite a bit in my life. It was very daunting, and I still today, I tour with you people, and you see how nervous I get before we play that first song. I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Yeah.
You know, and that's never changed. That anticipation of, have I got it right? Am I going to come in right? Am I going to play that first chord right? Am I going to remember the first line? Just stays with you.
Artists do need to have a little bit of energy flowing to be able to deliver a great performance anyway. And I know that in my years of experience, there seems to be 2 types of performers. There are those that have that natural nervous energy, and there are those like me that need to actually create that nervous energy and actually get myself worked up before I go on stage, so I pump out there to be able to stand and deliver. I guess I'm the complete opposite to you. How do you harness that nervous energy, convert that into a positive performance and a positive experience?
I think the secret to it is, and especially when we're on tour, Lindsay always does a sound check and everything's perfect on the stage.
Absolutely.
So when that comes out and you hear that in your own ears, you automatically settle down because everything's as it should be. The next thing is you look at the audience and they start to engage. That's when you feel calm.
Do you love performing? Like, is it part of what you truly love?
It still terrifies me to go and do it, but once I get on the stage and I start, I love it.
Let's talk about sound, because that's something else that you're wanting to develop, and you've stepped into becoming a sound man, providing a sound system for festivals and shows.
I guess over the time that I've been in the industry, I've come to appreciate that the sound really matters, especially to the artist.
Totally.
But if you can't hear yourself or everything's drowning you out on stage, it's it's just not as pleasing to be on the stage. Now, I have played at places, obviously, where the sound has been excellent, and I've played at places where I've really struggled with it. And I thought, I'm never going to criticise anyone till I do it myself.
You really enjoy it though, don't you?
I love it. I really love it. I don't like it when things are going wrong, especially when you find out it was just a bloody cable.
And it usually is.
Yeah, it's usually that simple thing. But I think it makes me more appreciative of what people are doing on the stage and what they're trying to achieve. And I think if you can help someone achieve that goal, you can make it as stress-free as you can for them. I think that's a good thing.
A sound man actually has the power to help an artist be all they can be, or they can crucify a performance.
It's almost as pleasing to see an artist come off the stage and say, thanks mate, as it is to be up there performing yourself.
What's one of the funniest things that you can remember on the road?
Some are better off left on the road, you know.
Many of them have to remain out there, but I'm sure there's something you can share.
When Lindsay's had enough of the female content in the tour bus and we watched the football in my caravan, and these excuses, I couldn't get my aerial to work. Yeah, and no full well he didn't wind it up. I do enjoy the fact that I sometimes ask you and Peg about a town we went through.
And we go, what town?
Because you were asleep.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there is some great times out on the road, and the road can be stressful too.
The fascinating thing about touring artists, it doesn't seem to matter how many things go wrong. 12 months later, all you can ever remember are the great times. What is the highlight of Greg Bain's career so far?
Well, I think there's probably quite a few highlights, and I think the highlights for me are I was always petrified about these big crowds.
I love them.
And I got to perform for some big crowds on some of the bigger stages. I got to perform on the main stage at Gympie at one stage. I've performed down here at the park through the festival. It's a sea of people. Wow, the big crowd. Oh, these thousands of people come to listen to this. Yes. So I think some of my real defining moments are on the big stages. I've really liked the big stages. But you know, I've got to go back to the StarQuest.
Where it all started.
To be announced the winner. Where's Greg Bain? Where's Greg Bain? And my wife's sitting there, we're just sitting talking. She said, they're calling you up on the stage. I thought, oh, they must want everyone up on the stage. And I'm the only bugger up there. And Peter Code's standing there to congratulate me. And I've got to say, it was Peter Code that insisted that Lindsay do my single. And it was Peter Code that looked after me for that 12 months. And between the association I've had with Slim Newton, the Codes, and the LBS group as a whole family, I don't really think you could ask for a better leg up than that.
Your last album was outstanding.
I did have to giggle when Lindsay was having a look at the album when we were recording yesterday. We listened to that album. We always listen to the previous album and then we start recording. And he's looking at the covers and everything. He said, oh, who took the photos for your covers? I said, Shaza. I said, you know that you was there. Was I? Oh, yeah.
He was at the studio, wasn't he? And you just dropped in here.
So I said, I went out to get me photos. I said, she took 6. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, they're good photos now. I like them. He said, and he's reading everything. And he said, who produced the covers and that? Who did that? I said, Shaza and Peg. I said, says so, right there. Oh, yeah, well, they've done a good job, haven't they?
Well, we all have our portfolios in this business.
He's right across the production,
that's exactly
not across the covers.
And you know what? When you produce albums like him, that's all you have to do. We take care of everything else. Yeah. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat today. And I know that your career is just going to go from strength to strength.
Like I said before, it's a terrifying time in your life, but I'm looking so much forward to what it brings now.
Thank you very much. Good on you, Greg.
My pleasure.
Lots of love, darling.
How's that, Peg?